I bring in national security and political analyst Paul Rieckhoff now. I don't want to push the panic button, and I do appreciate, Paul, that U.S. officials are saying that China should have no reason for overreaction here. It was a visit. They happen all of the time. But never have tensions been as high as they are between the U.S. and China. So we also have to appreciate the risk here.
Yeah, Marni, I think that's true. I think, a lot of us have been focused domestically over the last few months, and Ukraine and Russia and Putin have taken a lot of our attention, but China is still the biggest player in the world. They're our most formidable adversary. They've got the largest military. They've got the economic strength. And for most Americans, you're not paying attention to that much, but our national security apparatus, our Department of Defense, and our political leadership can't take our eyes off that ball. And in that landscape, Taiwan is the crown jewel. So we know that China is going to press the U.S. They're going to press the West. They're going to press their allies and try to push in whatever ways they can to try to gain an advantage. China's got a long view here. And if they view us as distracted by other things, either internally or around the world, they're going to press that advantage as much as they can. So they're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to be the peacemaker and still look strong. And the U.S. is in a complicated situation as well because our political leadership is not really aligned here. So I think it's a good thing that McCarthy's meeting with them. I think the president should do the same, and he probably will sometime soon. We had Speaker Pelosi there recently last year. It's a very delicate dance we're doing right now. But the bottom line is we can't take our eyes off the ball because China is the most formidable adversary on the planet.
All right. So the question being, how long can the strategic ambiguity continue? I guess you have to make a comparison at this point. Fair to say the situation with Taiwan and Russia's invasion of Ukraine and where the U.S. stands to help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that China realizes that if they do cross that line, there will be a response from the U.S. and there will be a response from the West. And you can look at Ukraine as an example. Before Ukraine happened, people thought the U.S. might sit it out. They thought NATO might wait on the sidelines. They thought Russia would storm right through and take over Kyiv in a matter of days. And now we've shown that the U.S. has the ability to project power without putting American boots on the ground. We sent a new round of support there this week, over $2 billion in ammunition. That's howitzer shells. That's mortar shells, that's HIMARS shells. We're showing that the American military and the American apparatus can support our allies from afar without putting our troops in harm's way. And that would be a scenario we would have to entertain if China decided to take Taiwan. But that is what World War III would look like. I think you're right not to be alarmist, but a war with China would be something on the level of which we've never seen before, and Taiwan would most likely be the pivot point.
And you just got to hope that all the players involved recognize that, and I believe they do. Let's talk a little bit more about Ukraine, Paul. President Zelenskyy and his wife made a state visit to Poland recently. He received the country's highest award, the Order of the White Eagle. Poland's promising at this point 10 more MiG fighter jets. What role will that play, especially as we watch the bloody situation in Bakhmut continue?
What we've seen here, Marni, is Poland is the forward edge. Poland is the first to do a lot of things. They were the first to send tanks. They're the first to send planes. And it makes sense because they've got an immediate border there. They face the most immediate threat. They've got tons of refugees there. So I think Ukraine is showing that Poland is among, if not their single most valuable ally. And the fact that the First Lady was there as well. Mrs. Zelenskyy hasn't traveled overseas with President Zelenskyy since the war began. And that's very significant. And you see Zelenskyy continuing to try to shore up support around the region. That includes now the addition of Finland to NATO, which is very significant. Finland has incredibly important geographic significance. It's 800 miles of border with Russia. They've got icebreakers. They've got tremendous artillery assets, and they've got a really tough military. It's a small military, but Finland did a great job fighting the Russians in World War II, and that's a part of their ethos. And adding them to NATO is definitely a new headache for Putin.
Right, but does that land border pose a serious concern moving forward, that it shares so much of a border with Russia, given that attack against one, attack against all?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a chess piece that I would want if I was commanding NATO. If I'm on the U.S. side, I want Finland shored up. And I think it also gives us the ability to project power into the Arctic, which is the part of this landscape that not many folks are tracking on. If I had to make a bet on where my sons might one day have to join the military to fight, it could be the Arctic. And that's a place that Putin wants to have control of, and having the advantage of Finland within NATO is going to be very important in combating that. And the next step is going to be Sweden. I think we can look to Sweden to join NATO at some point. point, probably in the next year. And that continues to kind of surround Putin on all sides with NATO forces that are all aligned, that are all well funded, and are ready to support what is likely to be a Ukrainian offensive in the days to come.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.